Do you ever feel like you're working with a bunch of idiots? No one knows what they're doing or think they know everything and screws up all their work. If you're a business owner, you can fix this. If you're not a business owner, send this to someone who can control the problem. I've worked with hundreds of business owners and leaders, and I see it, and I'm coaching on it. As you're starting and growing your business, you're doing everything. Big companies have teams of people to delegate to. You're doing the actual work or service, whether it's welding, doing the electrical work. Maybe you're running your own storefront. You're doing the marketing. You're doing the finances. You're doing the customer support. You're worrying about inventory or sourcing materials. You're worrying about compliance and licensing and code books. My goodness. If you were a car, you'd be filling up your gas tank daily. You finally made the move to hire someone. We're going to start with what we call onboarding. Onboarding is the process of bringing someone on into your company, teaching them the ins and the outs about your mission, your vision, your goals, where you're trying to go with your company. But let's be honest, most small business owners don't have onboarding. Most people are really just go off of vibes, hopes, and a prayer. Someone shows up, you throw them into the work, and 2 weeks later, you're wondering, what the heck? Why are they doing everything wrong? So in this video, I'm going to show you how to onboard someone in a week without manuals, software, or spending hours preparing. And it doesn't require being a good trainer. It just requires being clear. Let's set some expectations. Onboarding isn't about teaching everything. It's not about making someone perfect. And it's not about dumping information. Onboarding is really about reducing the confusion so that at the end of that week, someone knows where to go, who to ask, and they also know what good looks like. Then, over time, with your help, they'll figure out the rest. Day 1, safety and expectations. Day 1's not really about productivity. You're not going to get much work done on day 1 with that person. You're going to probably still be working as you're teaching them certain things. But it's about not getting hurt and not getting fired. So those are 2 important things. First, new hire, you don't want to get hurt, and you're not going to get fired. Day 1 should include safety basics. Any, PPE, so personal protective equipment, fire exits. What other safety things do they need to be aware of? Fire extinguishers, maybe a defibrillator, emergency phones, stuff like that. So they need to know safety basics, where things are, like the bathroom, the break room, if you have those, and certain things that they need for their job, tools, stuff like that. They should also know who's in charge. So you as a business owner, maybe it's you, or if you have a team lead, which we're talking about early situations. We're talking about early in your business, so it's probably just you, but knowing who to go to for certain things. And then they need to know what matters the most on day 1, right? So that's what you can focus on, narrow down their learning. Day 1 is a little bit too early for going into all the policies. If you have policies, you don't want to overload them with policies. You don't want to go over every possible scenario. That's a lot. I think there's a lot of different things that you go through on a daily basis. That may not be the best time. Here's a script that you can use. Today isn't about doing everything right. It's about understanding how we work and what matters here. Cover these 4 things. Safety rules. Very specific, not generic safety rules. Scheduling basics. Start time, breaks, lunch, end times. Who to go to with questions. For the most part, it's going to be you. And what will get them in trouble the fastest. So these are no-goes. Absolutely do not do these things. That's what you're sharing with them. If you do nothing else on day 1, do those 4 things. Day 2 and day 3 is shadowing. This is where most owners might mess up. They either leave the new person alone too soon, even when they have experience, or they hover so much the person freezes. Some people have some, performance anxiety. Shadowing should look very simple. It's, hey, watch this, watch what I'm doing, ask questions, and then do the small pieces. Shadowing does not mean just follow, Joe around and figure it out. It's best to give them that hands-on experience. Set expectations. For the next couple of days, your job is to watch, ask questions, and learn how we do things. Train them like you wish someone had trained you. That can make a big difference. Days 4 and 5 is doing the work, but with a safety net, so they don't fail. By day 4, they should be doing real work, just not alone. This is where some owners panic. But the person's slow, or they're making mistakes. Yeah, that's training. Whether we like it or not, there's making mistakes or going slow is part of training and somebody getting up to speed, right? What to do instead of fixing it yourself, let the person do it, watch it, and then correct it immediately. Like, it's okay to say, let's use email writing. So you are writing an email message, or they're writing an email message. You're going to just take a quick skim and correct them where they need to. Hey, that's not what I recommend doing because of X, Y, and Z. Or if they are doing some maintenance work, maybe they're clearing some dustbins and they're not doing it appropriately, or they're not doing it correctly, then you can tell them, hey, this is the right way to do it for safety reasons. We don't want anything to catch on fire, something like that. Here's something that you can say. I'm going to let you try this, and I'll jump in if needed. So you correct early, calmly, right then, and then waiting, if you wait too long to correct something, it just creates bad habits. So you do want to catch it on early. And then daily, after each day, you're going to do a quick check-in. This is a part that people often skip. Managers or business owners, they skip this check-in at the end of the day. If you remember yourself as a new hire, there's a lot of anxiety. You don't know, like, am I doing this right? Like, am I, or am I going to get in trouble down the road? So at the end of each day, ask the person, what made sense? What made sense today? What do you are you catching on? What do you understand? Or what didn't make sense? Was there something that you were a little confused about or unsure about? And then what questions do you have? Those are really quick. It doesn't have to be a long conversation. You're trying to get some things. You're trying to get where they understand, where they don't understand, and that way you can determine where you pivot with your training. Here are some common mistakes that kills onboarding fast. Assuming that experience equals understanding. And that one's really hard because you often hire people because they have the experience. As you're scaling up, you don't have a lot of time to train, so you need to rely on somebody that has had training before and knows what they're doing. But the issue is that somebody who may have had experience doesn't know exactly the way that you're expecting an outcome to be. Right? So I'm going to use electrical as an example, that there are ways to get things done, and then there are some ways to get things done that are maybe a little cleaner workspace, cleaner wires. So there are some things that you maybe have a preference for that is not, against regulations or code, right? So an example of what you would provide during onboarding during the week is that you give them the chance to demonstrate that they understand what you're looking for. Another mistake is saying, they should know this. And I use this phrase, this common phrase is, common sense isn't always so common. And I think there are a lot of assumptions that people make that, oh, they used to work in maintenance, so they should already know how to do this. Or, oh, they used to be in, they used to be a shipping and receiving specialist in a warehouse. They used to be a picker or packer. They should know how to do this. Maybe they should know how to do this, but sometimes they don't, and you'd want to find out and fix it before it goes too far and there are mistakes or work's not getting done. So the next mistake is waiting too long to correct things, right? You don't want things to go and become habits, because then it can turn into, well, I didn't know, or I wasn't told so. And then there's some rework that has to get done, which we want to avoid. And then the last mistake is overloading day one. I think we get really excited. We have somebody here finally to help us, and we want to just share all our knowledge and get them working and get them to full productivity. And so we want to overshare. And if you remember, again, being an employee on your first day, not as a business owner, or even as a business owner, do you remember that feeling of like anxiety, of like having to know everything and get everything done? And so it's really hard to remember things when you have so many things coming at you at the same time. So you want to be conscious, want to give them the right information and not overload them. If someone fails onboarding, it's usually not like an effort issue, right? I don't think anybody joins a company, joins a business to fail. Sometimes there's this issue with clarity and that understanding of what needs to get done and how it needs to get done. So to close, you don't need perfect training. What you need is clear expectations. Repetition is also really helpful. And then early correction is one that we hit a few times. That was a really simplified way to onboard someone in the first week. Of course, there's so much more to training and bringing on someone into the company to be a really effective employee. You'll be able to focus more on training as you get more help.